या चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश। नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome back to our Friday and Saturday Updeshamrit series. We are on text 2. Yesterday we began text 2 discussion. We quite elaborately discussed text 2. What is the verse text 2 dealing with? Bhakti Pratikul Shad Gun, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. The 6 items which are unfavorable for pure devotion. Pratikul, they are pratikul. And we did that analysis yesterday. And then we went into what text 2 actually deals with. So text 2, we saw it as Bhakti Pratikul Shadgun. And then we went into the song of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who's praying to the spiritual master that give me the strength to control these 6 urges and purify me of the 6 faults. So the 6 faults begin with Atyahar and give me these 6 good qualities which are mentioned in text 3 and 6 types of association which is mentioned in text 4. So real association is when we do these 6 loving exchanges in the association of devotees. So beautiful song. And then we went into the concept of Atyahar. What is the meaning of Atyahar? Yesterday we had an elaborate discussion, ahar of the senses, how to spiritualize them. And then what is the root cause of Atyahar? We saw the overview of text 2. And we discussed simple living and high thinking and the 6 faults, which is mentioned in paragraph 1 to 5 yesterday. So after laying down this background, Srila Prabhupada then goes into the discussion of the six faults. And we discussed how the Jiva, who is the Tatastha Shakti of the Lord, being now situated in the Bhairanga Shakti, simple living and high thinking is the best means by which we can go from the Bhairanga Shakti to the Antaranga Shakti. Just like we have to go by, we have to travel from, say, Bombay to New York. And there are many ways you can go by road. In fact, you have to go through different continents then. Then you can go by ship, but you can fly also. And that is the best way you can reach, the fastest way. Similarly, the best way to move from the external energy to the internal energy is to adopt the life of simple living and high thinking. So that is why Srila Prabhupada has discussed this. Then we also discussed how Atyahar is the first thing, which is the first fault. It is the root of all the faults, and Atyahar leads to Prayas. And then further it will lead to Prajalpa, and further to Niyamagra, further to Janasanga and Laulyam. But Atyahar can directly lead to Laulyam also, or Atyahar can lead to Janasanga also, Atyahar can lead to Niyamagra also, or Atyahar can lead to Prajalpa also. So that is, various combinations are possible, but it all first begins with Atyahar, and the root is the emptiness of the heart misdirected to the things of this world. So we discussed simple living, high thinking, the three energies of the Lord, and how those who are the Mahatmas, they are situated in their natural constitutional position, that is constant engagement in devotional service. Whereas the Duratmas, they are in the Bhairanga Shakti, enjoying sense gratification, either personal or extended. And they face these three types of kleshas. And actually the main problems which are confronted by the conditioned souls is birth, death, old age, and disease. This is where we completed our discussion in the yesterday's class. Janam Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. So now, after laying this background, Prabhupada starts actually setting up the prelude to discuss Atyahar, that we require possessions, roti, kapada or makan, that is the standard. So food, grains, clothing and money, which are necessary for the maintenance of body. But one should not collect more than necessary than his actual basic needs. And if you follow this natural principle, then there will be no difficulty in maintaining the body. So this is how Prabhupada begins discussing Atyahar. Now in the next paragraph, he further makes it more clear. So Atyahar begins with the discussion from this paragraph, everyone requires. Now Prabhupada mentions this principle of following this natural principle of having our actual basic needs fulfilled. He gives the example now. According to nature's arrangement, this is paragraph 7 we are reading, living entities lower on the evolutionary scale do not eat or collect more than necessary. So this is a natural principle which is followed in all the living entities who are lower in the evolutionary scale. That means except humans go down, all the species, they follow this natural principle. So we have to learn from other species to at least follow them. Consequently, in the animal kingdom, there is no economic problem or scarcity of necessities. So only you can see in the human kingdom, there is economic problems we face. And there is scarcity of necessities. Why? Because people hold on. They hold on and store it in the godowns so that the prices can go high, and then they can sell it at higher prices and make money. This is out of greed. Prabhupada in the Bhagavad Gita gives the example that during the Second World War, there was one merchant in Calcutta whose worshipable deity was Hitler. He had an altar where he was worshipping Hitler. Why? Because of Hitler, he had become very rich. He was a big merchant and he had stored a lot of grains in his godown, and he was selling these grains in the black market at very huge price, and that's how he became very rich. So it is only because of this greed, atyahar, how it leads to laulyam. That is the theme Prabhupada is discussing here. How atyahar leads to laulyam. Paragraph 6 and 7, he is dealing with this now. So Prabhupada gives this example in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 17th chapter, he gives this example. So all economic problems or scarcity is only in the human kingdom and not in the animal kingdom. No animals usually die because of lack of food. It's only the humans who might create such a problem situation for themselves and for the other species. Otherwise, by nature's arrangement, the whole material nature is arranged that all the 24 elements are in such perfect balance that all the necessities and all the quota for each of the species is provided by nature. It's only human species, by their deep-rooted desire to enjoy or to store, or because of this atyahar principle, that these problems are there. Prabhupada gives the example. If a bag of rice is placed in a public place, birds will come to eat a few grains and go away. So we have all seen this. We must have practically had this experience that a bag of rice is placed, or it is some truck accident has happened and the grains are fallen. The birds will come there and they will eat. A human being, however, will take away the whole bag. This is human mentality, and he does it because of the mentality to store, and this is because of laulyam. So here, this example Prabhupada is giving how atyahar leads to laulyam. Personally, in my engineering days, when I was going back home on my bike, a tanker met with an accident and it rolled. And practically the driver was injured. And because this tanker was carrying oil, the tanker was leaking. And I saw this accident happening in front of my eyes. And it was interesting, what Prabhupada is saying is true, that since the oil was spilling out from the tanker, there were some village people who were having their shoes, leather shoes, and they were dipping their leather shoes in this oil. And not only that, some from the shops started picking up barrels and trying to pick up the oil. And the tanker is met with an accident. The driver is there injured. Absolutely no concern. This is human species. This is because so much we are covered. Lobo pahata chetasa. In the Gita, Arjuna is saying, Yadyapi ete na pashanti lobo pahata chetasa. All these kings, because of the greed to have kingdom, they are ready to commit this sin of trying to fight with their own family members. So why? Because they don't have, they are covered. Lobo pahata chetasa. Chetana, their consciousness is covered by loba. This is greed. This is how powerful greed is. He will eat all his stomach can hold and then try to keep the rest in storage. So this is the deeper meaning of atyahar. Not jiva vegam. Jiva vegam is, jiva and udar vegam is when you overfill your belly. After you're overfilled, then you keep it in storage to eat for the next day. That is atyahar. That is the difference between the first verse and the second verse. According to scriptures, this collecting of more than necessary atyahar is prohibited. It is prohibited. Now the entire world is suffering because of it. Such a deep-rooted problem is atyahar. Prabhupada is explaining the whole world is suffering today. It's only because of this one root reason, atyahar. Atyahar is a universal disease in this material world. It's a very deep-rooted disease. And right in the second verse, Rupa Goswami is warning us, if you want to develop your devotional service, get rid of the 6 faults. Now, especially in Karnataka, many years back, iron ore was discovered in regions of Bellary. And the way mining was happening in this region, practically most of Bellary people who were average, moderate, middle class people, they all became millionaires. Many were, having Mercedes Benz. Some were having private helicopters. That's how they became rich over the span of few years. And entire iron ore was exported to China. And practically all the natural resources were exhausted. And the India Today magazine had the frontline cover page where this iron ore is being transported in the railway. Picture was there. And the headline was what? The Great Indian Robbery. So because of the greed to possess money, they completely exhausted the natural resources of iron ore. These natural resources maintain even the environment, in fact. And we don't know by extracting these natural resources from earth, what a harm we are causing. And even in Goa, this mining was rampant for the last few years. Now somehow the government has banned mining in these states, and somehow to protect the ecological system of the country. In the Vedic times, there was need of minerals for producing metals, especially weapons. But because everyone was living in harmony with nature, harmony with God, these natural resources were easily available. You need not have to dig deep and go deep into earth. They were naturally available on the surface of the earth. And what was required, they used to pick up and they used to produce the metals. But this mining, going deeper into the earth and using all kinds of artificial dynamites to explode and doing tunneling, trying to go deep into the earth to extract these minerals, all is a complete pain to Mother Earth. And the reactions come, and everyone in the world is suffering because of this, Prabhupada is saying. So this is how deep-rooted is atyahar problem. So we have now discussed atyahar in brief, what Prabhupada has explained, and how atyahar is connected to laulyam. So any questions, any clarifications anyone has about atyahar? How atyahar leads to laulyam? Okay, so then we will go to the next paragraph. There's one question. Yes, Mataji. Shri Valli Ratna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Can you please tell the literal translation of the word laulyam, Prabhu?
literal translation of the word Laulya. Laulyam it is here. It is Laulya. Literal translation of the word Laulyam. I know only Laulya. Laulya is greed. But from the etymological sense, Sanskrit meaning of the root words, I mean the dhatu word, how Laulya is greed, I don't know. But in a general sense, Laulya is greed. That is well known. But etymologically, I don't know. Yeah, practically, I don't know. Like at least Dharma we know. Dharma comes from the root word dhrit, dhatu. Dhru means that which sustains or that which holds. That is the root meaning. Like that, Laulya, I really don't know. I can find out.
Thank
Okay.
you, Prabhu.
Okay. Any other questions anyone has regarding Atyar and Laulya, what we discussed now? Okay, so then we will go to the next paragraph, that is paragraph 8. So paragraph 8 discusses about prayas. So how now prayas and atyahar together are discussed from 8 to 13. This is a long discussion now. When we have this atyahar will lead to prayas, definitely. So now how atyahar leads to prayas is what Prabhupada discusses in paragraph 8 now. Paragraph 8. Collecting and eating more than necessary also causes prayas. So atyar causes prayas. Atyar directly leads to prayas, unnecessary endeavor. By God's arrangement, anyone in any part of the world can live very peacefully if he has some land and a milk cow. There is no need for man to move from one place to another to earn a livelihood, for one can produce food grains locally and get milk from cows. That will solve all economic problems. Now, Prabhupada again is emphasizing, especially for our maintenance of the body, roti, kapada and makan, that we don't endeavor a lot. And again, he's emphasizing the principle of simple living and high thinking based on agrarian civilization, based on agriculture. And somehow it is an irony in ISKCON that still we are not able to come to the standard what Prabhupada is speaking about. There is one video I watched many years back, and it is very interesting. The title of the video is Life is Simple. And it speaks about, this is a 10-12 minute video where it speaks about a village boy. He's speaking to the audience, and he speaks how as in his childhood, he was born in a simple village in Indonesia, and all the people around, because of modernization, they were bombarding him that you have to go to the city. If you want to be successful, if you want to earn, make career, you have to go to the city. So somehow, because he was bombarded in his childhood, after his schooling, he went to the university, to the city. Indonesia capital is, I think, what, Bangkok? What is the capital of Indonesia? I don't recollect. I think Bangkok. Indonesia is Bangkok, I think. So he went to the city and he was enrolled in the university. And in the university, he was studying day and night. And he was staying with his friends. Jakarta. Jakarta is, I don't know. Yeah, maybe Jakarta. So they were all packed in one small room. So 7 of the students were all staying in one small room, and practically, they were not able to cook their own food, and day and night they're busy writing assignments and going to the university. What a congested living they were having. And he started wondering, why did I come here? I was so happy in the village. So ultimately he decided to give up his university education and go back to the village. He went back to the village and started growing food, agriculture. Rice is the staple food there. So he had a few acres of land. As far as I remember, 2 or 3 acres of land he had. And he started growing rice there, practically, which was enough to take care of 6 families. Not only his own family, but 6 other families. And for having houses, he started building his own natural mud houses. And there in the university, his friends all graduated, got into big companies. And because you're staying in the city, you need a house, you need a car. And practically because they were having these big jobs, they all took loans, home loan, car loan. And for the next 20, 30 years, because they had these houses which are on loan and the cars on loan, for the next 20, 30 years, they had to just toil, work very hard, like cats and dogs, as Prabhupada says, just to clear that loan, because it is there on their head. Whereas this person who had moved back to the village, he was explaining in that talk that, I have my own house, mud houses, beautiful houses. And sometimes if I don't like one house, I can go to another house. So in his own farm, he had built 3-4 houses. And any one time he wants a change, he can go and stay in another house. And practically today he is considered as a saint. People come and worship him and they want to take advice from him. Of course, he's not a saint in a spiritual sense, because that is not Shastric knowledge, but what lifestyle he has led has influenced many people all over the world, and they are coming for his advice and guidance. So in this talk, Life is Simple, he has demonstrated this. And ISKCON also has to go a long way in order to come to this point of living a lifestyle based on this principle, simple living and high thinking, and devote most of the time for spiritual practice. Fortunately, man has been given higher intelligence for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness or understanding of God, one's relationship with him, and the ultimate goal of life, love of Godhead. Prabhupada is speaking about human intelligence is higher intelligence given for understanding Sambandha, Avideya, and Prayojan. Unfortunately, so-called civilized man, Prabhupada is using the word so-called, not caring for God realization, utilizes his intelligence for getting more than necessary and simply eat to satisfy the tongue. So this modern civilization, advanced civilization, is not based on God realization, based on materialism. So they use this higher intelligence, gifted intelligence, instead of understanding God, they want to produce more and more things. They want to manipulate matter more and more. So Prabhupada is to give the example that just like an IAS officer, he's given a car, he's given a bungalow, he's given a servant, he's given a secretary, so that he can use the intelligence in the government work. He can use his intelligence exclusively for addressing the needs of the government, to make policies. Similarly, when we get the human form of life, by nature's arrangement, all our necessities are provided by God through nature, so that we can use that higher intelligence to understand God, Sambandha Abhideya Prayojan. But if we don't use that higher intelligence for understanding God, and we use that intelligence in order to produce things of this world, then our struggle for the basic needs becomes more difficult than the animals. And this is what practically we are seeing. The animals don't go to any factories for their basic economic needs. They don't work hard like human beings. but we are seeing how human beings are working so hard for their basic needs. So our struggle has become more difficult than the animals. Prabhupada was once in Japan, and Prabhupada saw that how the laborers were just boarding the boat to go other side of the river for work. And Prabhupada felt compassion, and he was saying, see how hard they are working, just crossing the river to work very hard for maintaining their bellies. And see the bird, just flies in the air, and it is going from one tree to another tree just to take care of his maintenance. And here is a hard work, how the laborers are going from one boat to another boat, from one place to another place. In Bombay, the local trains, everyone knows about it. They have to travel back and forth hours in the train. So because we are misusing our higher intelligence and not understanding Sambandha Abhidaya Prayojan, so our struggle has become more difficult than the animals. Prabhupada continues the discussion in paragraph 8. Paragraph 9. By God's arrangement, there is sufficient scope for the production of milk and grains for human beings all over the world. But instead of using his higher intelligence to cultivate God consciousness, so-called intelligent men misuse intelligence to produce many unnecessary, unwanted things. Consumerism is very rampant today in this modern civilization, which are unnecessary and unwanted. Thus, factories, slaughterhouses, brothels, liquor shops are opened. If people are advised not to collect too many goods, eat too much, or work unnecessarily to possess artificial amenities, they think they are being advised to return to a primitive way of life. Generally, people do not like to accept plain living and high thinking. That is their unfortunate position. What a great misfortune, Prabhupada says. They don't accept simple living and high thinking principle. So this is what Prabhupada explains how to see that atyahar will not lead to prayas, and how we can have prayas which is very easy to take care of our basic necessities. Generally, atyahar is very subtle and we might not detect it. And when we start endeavoring or over endeavoring in some pursuits, in the name of spirituality also, in the name of maintenance of family also, but that starts affecting our sadhana, then it is like a caution. Oh, maybe something is going wrong. It's maybe I'm doing too much of over endeavor. There is something prayas, too much of prayas is happening. And maybe the prayas, the reason why prayas is happening is because of atyahar. So we can introspect like that. So this is how we should see how atyahar leads to prayas, and Prabhupada is speaking about it. So in the PPT, I have just summarized what we discussed now. Okay, this is there. Okay, fine. Now, in the PPT here, you can see, as I had mentioned, Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks quite in detail in his article on Prayas, and I've summarized everything here in one chart. It's a very lengthy article and it requires 1 or 2 classes to explain it. But just to give you the sum and substance, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says there are many, many kinds of prayas. The first one is Bhoga Prayas. And this Bhoga Prayas, there are 2 types, gross and subtle. Too much prayas for accumulating things to enjoy. Then there can be prayas in the form of subtle, like music, trying to learn music and have subtle endowment at the mental level, and neglecting the basic practices of devotional service. So that can be subtle level of Bhoga Prayas. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about Jnana Prayas, and he quotes Jnane Prayasa Udapasa Namante. That was from the Srimad Bhagavatam and Mandukya Upanishads. too much Gyan Prayas, we had already discussed in the first verse also, that the Gyanis accumulate too much of knowledge on the Vedanta Upanishads in order to attain liberation. So that will come in the category of Jnana Prayas. Then Karma Prayas. Karma Prayas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes 1 to 8. Dharma Sunishrita Pumsa Vishwakshena Katasuya Nodpad Yadiratim Shrama Evahi Kevalam. If one identifies himself based on his Varna and Ashram and is so much absorbed in Varnashram duties that he doesn't see that Varnashram is ultimately facilitated so that we can practice pure devotion, and he neglects pure devotion and is absorbed in what? His Varna duties. Oh, I am a Kshatriya. I am supposed to do, my Kshatriya Dharma. But Kshatriyas are also supposed to hear Shastra from the sadhus. Because Kshatriyas have Ishwar Sabhav, the tendency to control, it is mentioned in the Manusmriti that a Kshatriya should hear the scriptures at least 6 hours a day. So that he will do Shashan based on the Shastras under the guidance of the Brahmanas. But if he is so much absorbed in controlling and managing that he forgets to practice pure devotion, then what? Shrama evahi kevalam. So this is Karma Prayas, he says. Then he says Ashtang Yoga Prayas. That is mystic powers and merging in the impersonal Brahman. When one endeavors too much in that direction, that is Ashtang Yoga Prayas. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about Vairagya Prayas. He quotes 1 to 7. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janeti Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Tad Ahetukam. Now this Vairagya Prayas is a little subtle, and devotees can fall prey to this Vairagya Prayas. The verse which is quoted, which I just now recited, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. When one practices bhakti unto Lord Vasudeva, automatically what? Janeti Ashu Vairagyam. Vairagya and Gyan are the byproducts of bhakti. So as one practices devotion, detachment from matter and knowledge, transcendental knowledge automatically awakens. Of course, we hear bhakti literatures, that is bhakti sambandhat Gyan only. But knowledge and detachment automatically manifest. We get the knowledge how enjoying matter is a source of suffering. Yahi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha ena yona evate. So that knowledge will manifest. With that knowledge also, detachment from matter manifest. Why? Because there is attachment to Vasudeva Bhagavati. We are practicing devotion. But sometimes devotees artificially try to do too much of Vairagya. I happened to meet one devotee. I asked him, how is your spiritual life? And then he started telling, oh, I get up every day, morning 3 o'clock. And then every day, once in the afternoon, I have my meal. And he started all describing his Vairagya activities. And then subtly I could understand that there is too much of endeavor in Vairagya Prayas. But devotees should practice Bhakti Prayas. If we, start endeavoring in practicing devotional service nicely, we get attached to Krishna, naturally we'll become detached from matter. If we try to endeavor to become detached from matter, then that will be Vairagya Prayas. So this is a little subtle. We have to be careful about it. And too much of detachment is the path of Jnana and Ashtanga Yoga. That's why in Bhakti also, we should practice as much as is favorable for cultivation of devotional service. And only one thing Bhaktivinoda Thakur says is we should give up pride, because pride is a root of all anarthas. puja la pratishta. So this is this kind of bhakti prayas is to be done, and all these others, Bhoga Prayas, Jnana Prayas, Karma Prayas, Ashtanga Yoga Prayas, Vairagya Prayas, these all have to be given up. So this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur quite in detail. He's dealing in his article Bhakti Aloka. I have just summarized everything. There should be endeavor in devotion, definitely, to practice sadhana bhakti. We should endeavor, and this is favorable for our cultivation of devotional service. Now, regarding simple living and higher thinking, livelihood, we read, and here I've summarized in the chart the Vedic way and the modern materialistic way. It is God conscious centered, high living, because there is spiritual knowledge. Simple living principles are there. It is based on land and cow, and we live in one place peacefully. The farmer, when he comes out of his house, from his hut, his field, his kshetra is there, agriculture. He just has to walk out from his house, and that is his workplace. Today, because of modern civilization, sometimes we stay in one place, and to work, we have to drive kilometers together. Even to come to the temple, sometimes, especially many times I hear devotees who stay abroad, just for satsang, they have to drive 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers for association of devotees. Recently, I had met one devotee. He is from Ireland, and he says every Sunday for the satsang, he has to drive 350 kilometers. So much of prayas, but of course, it is worth it. And but work also, we have to travel up and down. The modern materialistic livelihood is without God consciousness, producing unnecessary, unwanted things based on factories, brothels, liquor shops, and there is travel from one place to another place. So this is how we have summarized paragraphs 8 and 9. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada explains how this prayas can enter even in religion, in Dharma. This is the theme. Prabhupada starts explaining from paragraph 10 onwards. This is paragraph 10 now. Now we'll start reading about how prayas also can enter into Dharma, in religion. How prayas can enter into the religion. This is very important for us also as devotees. Now regarding the two paragraphs 8 and 9 we discussed. Anyone has any questions, any clarifications? You can raise your hand. Any questions, any clarifications regarding those two paragraphs? How Atyar leads to prayas, which we discussed. Okay. Fine. Any questions you have here? Okay. So then now we'll see how prayas can enter into Dharma. This is from paragraph 10 here. You can mark also in your books that paragraphs 10, 11, 12 and 13 are dealing with how prayas can enter into religion. Human life is meant for God realization, and the human being is given higher intelligence for this purpose. The human form of life is the only form of life where we can realize God, and we are bestowed with that intelligence. Atato Brahma Jigyas can happen only by human beings. A dog can never inquire, who am I? Who is God? Why am I here in this creation? Those who believe that this higher intelligence is meant to attain a higher state should follow the instructions of the Vedic literatures. So the human body is like a manual, and how to use this manual is the Vedic literatures. By taking such instructions from higher authorities, one can actually become situated in perfect knowledge and give real meaning to life. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Suta Goswami describes the proper human dharma in this way. Dharmasya hi apavargasya Narto arthayo papalpate, nartasya dharma ikantasya, kamo labhahi smrita. So this is the next verse after we discuss this verse. Dharma swanishtita pumsa vishvashrena katasuya notpadyed yadi ratim shama eva hikalam. This is karma prayas. Too much of doing varnashram duties and you don't utilize your situation in the varna and ashram to hear Krishna Katha and develop attraction for Krishna Katha, then all your varnashram duties are Shama Evahi Kevalam. After this next verse is explaining what is the purpose of real dharma. Dharmasya hi apavargasya. Dharma has to be practiced based on varna and ashram for ultimate liberation. Now, for the devotees who are practicing Shuddha Bhakti, Apavarga will refer to Prema. For the Jnanis and Yogis, Apavarga will refer to liberation. So that is the difference. Na arthaya, artha arthaya upakalpate. Dharma is not meant for artha. Arthaya means we do dharma for the purpose of arthaya. So now we are practicing bhakti with the goal to attain prema. But the general rule is, with practice of bhakti, dharma, this is pure dharma, bhagavad dharma, what we are practicing, or ananya bhakti, ahetuki bhakti, or shuddha bhakti. With this practice of bhakti, artha and kama will come. That is how the natural progression is. Dharma will follow with artha, artha will follow with kama, kama will follow with moksha. So this is natural progression. So when devotees practice bhakti, artha will come in the form of puja, la pratishta. But these are fringe benefits and one should not be carried away. One should be focused. Na artasya, no material gain. So bhakti, by practice of bhakti, bhakti utta sukruti. There are things which are in the form of anarthas which come by the practice of bhakti, which is in the form of puja la pratishta. And in Madhuri Kadambani, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur says, Taranga Rangini. Taranga Rangini means, Taranga means the waves. Rangini means one who takes pleasure in floating in the waves. Just like the surfers, they go surfing in the ocean and they take a lot of pleasure in going in the waves. So similarly, the devotee, by practicing bhakti, all the good qualities start manifesting and it becomes attractive. And devotees show respect to him. He starts getting puja. They'll give many gifts to him. On their own, these gifts start coming. And then a lot of donations will come to him. Then what will he do with all this? If he starts enjoying these all fringe benefits, then he will only float in that waves of the ocean. He will not go deep into bhakti. So these are fringe benefits which come with the practice of bhakti. And that's why Sut Goswami is saying, Na artasya dharma ekantasya. Dharma ekantasya. One who is one-pointed, vyavasayatmika buddhi. One who has practicing sadhana bhakti with the goal of attaining prema. He should not get drifted and deviated with this. Kamo labhahi smrita, sense gratification. One should not never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. So this is from the bhakti perspective. I explained how those who are practicing dharma, bhagavad dharma, should have the goal of prema, and artha will come. And if you take that artha, then you'll enjoy kama, and then ultimately you'll forget the goal. So bhukti and mukti are like, these are desires which are very, very subtle in the heart. Bhukti, mukti, spriha, yavat. In the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami says, those who still have desires for bhakti and mukti, pishachi, he says these are like pishachi, riddhi vartate, who are residing in the heart. How can one experience the bliss of devotional service? So we should see this desire to enjoy or desire for liberation as anarthas, and we should weed out the bhakti lata as it is growing. The anarthas in the form of these upashakas also start coming up. These are like upashakas. These are the other weeds, creepers, along with the bhakti lata which they are growing. So we should be very careful not to feed the upashakas water. So much of puja, la pratishta is coming and you start rejoicing in that. That means you are giving a lot of water to the upashakas. They will start growing and the bhakti lata will get stunted. So we should cut down these upashakas. So puja, la pratishta and all which come, we should be very careful about it. And ultimately we should become free from these gross desires, also the subtle desire for liberation, and ultimately attain prema. Now the Gyan and Gyan yogis and Ashtang yogis who practice their dharma, the Gyan yoga or Ashtang yoga, they desire liberation. And because they are also practicing, the Gyanis practice Shama and Dama, the Ashtang yogis practice the Ashta Angas, so they will also get artha. But that artha, they will not utilize it for their sense gratification, but they will use it whatever is necessary for their own maintenance and ultimately distribute it to others. So this is how the Gyanis and the Yogis application is there for this verse. Now, especially when sometimes devotees take up to devotional practice, somebody might, with practice of devotional service, get a lot of artha also. Somebody might become very rich with the practice of bhakti. Now is a test for him. How will he use these benefits which Krishna has given within the practice of bhakti? He should try to use this artha for preaching purpose, for distribution of books, for building temples, for serving the sadhus. So the more we use the artha, which comes with the practice of bhakti, more directly in Krishna conscious activities, the more we can become free from prayas as well as atyahar. So this is very important that we don't fall prey to this dharma, artha, kama, moksha principle and directly practice dharma to attain the panchama purusha, that is prema. So I discussed this verse. In the next verse, Prabhupada will clarify what we had discussed. The first step in human civilization consists of occupational engagements performed according to the scriptural injunctions. So the first step in bhakti is, to practice the angas of sadhana bhakti for us, not varna and ashram duties, because those who have got pure faith, pure shraddha, they should start practicing the angas, injunctions of the Shastras, that is the 4 regulated principles and chanting of Hare Krishna. The higher intelligence of a human being should be trained to understand basic dharma. In human society, there are various religious conceptions characterized as Hindu, Christian, Hindu, Mohammedan, Buddhist, and so forth. For without religion, human society is no better than animal society. Now, Prabhupada, in this next paragraph, that is paragraph 13, how prayas also can come in the field of religion, he explains it. As stated above, dharma se hi apavargasya narto artayo upakalpate. Religion is meant for attaining emancipation, not for getting bread. Religion is meant for attaining Krishna Prem, according to Shuddha Bhakta definition. Sometimes human society manufactures a system of so-called religion aimed at material advancement, but that is far from the purpose of true dharma. So sometimes many new devotees who take up to Krishna consciousness, they ultimately come that let me practice bhakti so that I can get a lot of wealth. So for artha, these kind of subtle desires in the beginning stages might be there. So we should have a clear understanding of the philosophy that I'm practicing bhakti exclusively to attain Krishna Prem. Religion entails understanding the laws of God, because the proper execution of these laws ultimately lead one out of the material entanglement. That is the true purpose of religion. Unfortunately, people accept religion for material prosperity because of atyahar. Now, Prabhupada is again coming to that point. Why people accept religion is because of atyahar, excessive desire for prosperity. Especially today, in many countries, I don't know, but at least in many countries here in India, many states here in India, the other religions, Prabhupada is explaining about Christianity and her view on Mohammedanism, they lure their followers based on material prosperity, not to practice true dharma. And that's why they are growing in numbers. And they basically provide sense gratification or wealth. You take up to this dharma and you convert yourself, and we will take care of all your material necessities. So they practice dharma for kama or artha, for artha, and artha ultimately is for kama. So Prabhupada is here explaining what is the purpose of true religion. True religion is to get out of this material world. So if those who accept this for artha and kama, ultimately they remain back in the material world. So the purpose of dharma is not served for them. True religion, however, instructs people to be satisfied with bare necessities of life while cultivating Krishna consciousness. Even though we require economic development, true religion allows it only for supplying the bare necessities of material existence. Now, what is the bare necessity for everyone based on one's status will vary. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is a very, very interesting verse. In the 4th chapter, I think in verse 21. Yes. Nirashira yata chittatma tektva sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma puran napnoti kilmasha. So we should do actions for Krishna's pleasure without any desire. Nirashir. Nirashir means without desire for the results. Yes. Anya abhilashita shunyam. Then yata chittatma, we should control our senses and mind while engaging in Krishna service also. And tektva sarva parigraha, we should be free from all sense of proprietorship or sense of possessive position. Shariram kevalam karma. This is a very interesting phrase in this 3rd pada. Krishna is saying shariram kevalam karma. So we should not desire the fruits. We should control our mind and senses while engaged in Krishna service. And we should not desire the fruits also which will come. And we should not think, oh, I did this work for Krishna. That sense of I-ship should not be there, sense of doership. Then it will be what? Ahankar vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. So that also should not be there. So then, shariram kevalam karma. Keeping the body and soul together, one should do work. Then one will not be kurvan apnoti kilbisha. One will not be affected by the sinful reactions. So for Arjuna, the shariram kevalam karma will vary. Arjuna is a king. He cannot stay in a hut. He needs a palace. He needs some basic facilities and necessities. And that is right for him. Whereas a Brahmana, for him, shariram kevalam karma will vary. He is naturally detached. He has knowledge. And that is why he will stay in a hut and he'll be happy. That is why we see that Chanakya Pandit, who was the advisor and the minister to the king, Chandragupta Maurya, right? So he Chanakya Pandit never took any remuneration from the king, and he maintained himself by staying in a small hut because he was a Brahmana. So Shariram Kevalam Karma will vary. Now, sometimes some devotees come from very royal families, and it is not expected that because they have taken up Krishna consciousness for we should have the bare necessities of life, so they should shift to a small house and stay in a small house, simple living and high thinking. No, they can continue to live in their royal palace and use that royal palace to invite others to have programs in their houses to preach and have a nice temple, nice altar in the house. So that is how, in a practical sense, we have to see how this principle has to be utilized of what Srila Prabhupada is speaking in his purport. So, the bare necessities of life. So, the more one, whichever status of life he is situated in the present context, uses those facilities for propagating Krishna consciousness, preaching Krishna consciousness, that is the best way he can adjust things given in the present situation. Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa. Real purpose of life is to inquire into the absolute truth. So he can sponsor book distribution, do a lot of book distribution, build temples. Those who are in the aristocratic families who have taken up to Krishna consciousness in the present context. That's what I'm explaining. If our endeavor, prayas, is not to inquire about the absolute truth, we will simply increase our endeavor to satisfy artificial needs. So here is a very important sutra, a very important principle Prabhupada is explaining. Now, how do I know whether my endeavor is in spiritual life or I am endeavoring too much in the material life because of atyahar? This statement is going to clarify it. Am I endeavoring too much in a field where I can want to know the absolute truth? Am I endeavoring in that direction? Or are my endeavors in more, maintaining my social status and earning more, where my bhakti is reducing? So this is how I should inquire and introspect and understand. So for our endeavor, we can endeavor more and more in inquiring the absolute truth, and that is favorable for the cultivation of devotional service. But if our endeavors are to increase our artificial needs, then that is a great fault, and that can destroy our devotion. And Prabhupada ends his discussion by a profound statement. A spiritual aspirant should avoid mundane endeavor. One who is a spiritual aspirant should be careful to, do mundane endeavor. So that is about prayas. So next we will go to prajalpa. Any questions regarding prayas, what we had discussion? Prayas in the field of dharma. Prayas in the field of dharma. Anyone has any questions? I hope the discussion of prayas in the field of dharma is clear then. Okay, fine. So now we will go to Prabhupada is speaking in his purport, that is Prabhupada in paragraph 14 speaks about prajalpa. Shri Valli Ratna Mataji has a question. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. We read just now that
too much of prayasa, if it is not about the absolute truth, will obviously increase our artificial needs. But many times in many lectures and from what we read earlier, like attitude is more important. So acquiring things is not bad, provided we put it to good use. So how do we relate, Prabhu? Because in today's world, as you said, nobody is a king and nobody is a common man.
No, I'm exactly not getting what you mean to say.
I mean, from what we understood in this prayasa in religion, it says that too much endeavor will lead you again into artificial needs. I mean, that's again atyahara. And too much of atyahara will deviate us from the spiritual path.
Correct.
But from what we read earlier, attitude is more important. So do you think it's wrong to get more, accumulate more, to put it to good use?
Okay, I
Or
got
is
it.
that also considered atyahara?
Yes, got it. I got it. So from what my experience has been last few years, and I have met many devotees also in this context, they sometimes take the excuse. I knew one devotee who was an average businessman, and he had big aspirations to make a lot of money. For what? Ultimately, he said that I would like to give this money donation to the temple and see that a big temple comes up. And in this pursuit, he was endeavoring a lot. And because he was endeavoring a lot in that direction to accumulate wealth, see, the intentions were good. Purpose was to get that wealth, ultimately to use it in Krishna service. But his spiritual practices gradually affected a lot, and it diminished. And ultimately also, he did not make that good money also. So sometimes Maya is so strong and so subtle that even in our practices, we think that we are endeavoring in the right direction, but Maya can trick us. And we might slacken our devotional practices in the name of endeavor for a spiritual purpose. So this is one practical example, and he was quite a big, man in the outside world who was trying to do business and make a good fortune so that he can donate the funds to the temple. His motives were also quite good, but again, he was not successful. The second example, practical example, I came across in one center when I'd gone, where one of the Matajis who was a teacher, she told me that she's been endeavoring a lot in order to raise donations for the temple project. And somehow I was hearing very attentively because then I spoke to the brahmachari and asked. And I found out that too much endeavor what she was putting, because the purpose was, I want to collect funds, I want to raise donations. And her spiritual practices had also come down because of that. And ultimately, we should have faith that if we chant Hare Krishna sincerely, Krishna, for him to build a temple, he can send someone, and that person can just come and give the donation, and the whole temple can be erected. And what did the 6 Goswamis do? Did they go and raise some funds? They were just sitting there and chanting, and by Krishna's arrangement, big millionaires came and they built the temples for them. None of the Goswamis did that, if you see. So today we are working in a different environment, and Prabhupada, practically, what did he do? Just sat in Radha Damodar those 6 years and did his bhajan and went up. and opened 108 temples. Of course, devotees endeavored also a lot for fundraising, but my point is, we lose the core sometimes in trying to focus on the periphery within the devotions realm. Within the devotional realm, we focus on the core. If we practice bhakti nicely, automatically Krishna, if he wants that the temple should come, Krishna will send someone with the donations. We need not endeavor a lot. But in the name of, for temple purpose, for raising donations, we endeavor a lot. And then we slacken our practices. That can fall in the 6 faults what Rupa Goswami is speaking about. So that is why we should be very, very careful. Many times devotees tell me, especially grahasthas who are businessmen, that I want to earn more so that I can give donation. But when I call them for seminars, come, I have arranged a 3-day seminar on the holy name. Prabhuji, I don't have time for that because I'm caught up in my business duties. Now, if you can't attend a seminar on holy name for 3 days and devote early time, morning for chanting so that you can, do your worldly duties in a proper consciousness, then your consciousness is not proper for actually even those endeavors which you want to dovetail in Krishna service. So better is to focus on the core and take care of the root of the problems which Rupa Goswami is mentioning here as 6 faults. I hope this is clear, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes. So there is one more question. Mohan Arup Sham Prabhuji has a question. Yes, Prabhuji.
Is it, I heard like giving time is more important than giving money. Is it correct? Is it the right context, Prabhu, for Krishna? Krishna expects us to give the more time of us to him than giving our money. Is it correct?
Yes. Just see in the family context. In the family context, if the father starts working day and night to give better facilities to the family and doesn't give the time to the family, what will the family children tell? I want you, father, not your money or not your facilities. We want your time. Yes. So similarly, in the spiritual context, in the higher family context, definitely Krishna wants that we give quality time, and that quality time is our japa. We should get quality time to chant our japa. We should spend time with Krishna in the sadhana stage. Definitely, something interesting, because you brought out this point. Sometimes pure devotees, very advanced devotees, they have so much taste for chanting, but still they chant only 16 rounds. Although they can chant 32 rounds and 64 rounds, but still they will reduce their rounds to 16 and actually give their time for preaching. And because they are so much absorbed in preaching, that they don't have time for Krishna, in fact, in one sense. But Krishna sometimes, these pure devotees, sometimes Krishna can give them sickness so that, they can spend time, Krishna can spend time with them. So that's what Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, that when a pure devotee is sick, it's not, don't see it from mundane vision. Actually, Krishna is giving some special mercy to him. So pure devotees sometimes don't have time for Krishna because they are doing Krishna's work in the form of showing compassion to the jivas and preaching. And sometimes they can reduce their number of rounds. They could chant more rounds, 32 or 64, but they maintain the minimum in order to show jiva daya. And sometimes Krishna has to, make some arrangements so that Krishna can spend time with them. And sometimes in that form, he gives them sickness. So that's what Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says. I hope it is clear, Mohan Rup Sham Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, very true.
Yeah. Any other questions you have regarding this? So then we will discuss two more small themes are there, and with that we will finish Prabhupada's discussion on these 6 faults. So let us now go to Prajalpa. Another impediment is Prajalpa, unnecessary talking. When we mix with a few friends, we immediately begin unnecessary talking, sounding like croaking toads. If we must talk about Krishna conscious movement. Those outside of Krishna conscious movement are interested in reading heaps of newspapers, magazines, and novels, solving crossword puzzles, and doing many other nonsensical things. In this fashion, people simply waste their valuable time and energy. In Western countries, old men retired from active life play cards, fish, watch television, and debate about useless socio-political schemes. All these and other frivolous activities are included in the Prajalpa category. Intelligent persons interested in Krishna consciousness should never take part in such activities. So Prabhupada has spoken just one paragraph on Prajalpa, but Prajalpa is a very deep subject, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur deals quite elaborately in his article Bhaktya-loka. Jalpan means to talk, and Prajalpa means Prakrisht Rupena Jalpa. So this Jalpan or Prajalpa has a positive connotation. Connotation means an implied meaning, and a negative connotation. So negative connotation means just talking about, so many subject matters, as Prabhupada is saying, useless socio-political schemes or debates, or what is happening today in the politics, what is happening in the industry, all these frivolous talks. So this is a negative connotation of Prajalpa. But Prajalpa has a positive connotation also, in the form of talking about Krishna. As in the Bhagavad Gita it is said, Macchitta matgata prana bodhayanta parasparam kataschanti mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. So this positive Jalpan is favorable for Krishna consciousness. So this is positive Prajalpa, positive connotation of the word Prajalpa. This is favorable. Whereas all others, which here Prabhupada has noted here, all other things are waste of time. Especially devotees should take care of newspaper, because when we read the newspaper, even our mind is getting absorbed in what we are reading. And in the daytime, when we meet devotees also, this is the news, this is what is happening. So we start doing Prajalpa. The mind is like the big mouth, and the mouth is like the other mouth is the physical mouth. And when the big mouth has, impressions are there of the newspapers, then the mouth will speak about it. So that's why we should be very careful in today's world as devotees. It is necessary to know what is happening, within what is required for us. And there are ways and means by which we can do that. We can ask others. His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj is very much updated of what is happening all around the world. And in fact, whichever city he goes, he tries to know what is there. But he doesn't read the newspaper. He will ask the devotees, those who are from those fields, what is happening, that's how he gets the information. So we should be very, very careful, especially about newspapers, magazines, and novels, especially novels. Many, those who are having good reading habits, they maybe previous coming to Krishna consciousness, they were reading novels. So that taste remains for reading novels. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur recommends that we should read spiritual novels. Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself wrote 2 novels, Prem Pradeep and Jaiva Dharma. Many of ISKCON proper disciples like Devamrit Swami Maharaj and Satyarup Das Adhikari, and even Chaitanya Prabhu has written some of their books in the novel format. So that's how our propensity to read novels can be directed towards spirituality. So these look like simple things, but they all, if they are not taken care, they will lead to prajalpa. So that is why we should take care of them. So here in the chart, I have just summarized. There are different types of prajalpa, unnecessary talking. All these, what Prabhupada has already mentioned in the purport, I have put it here in the chart. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions there is godless prajalpa. Godless prajalpas are impediments to devotional service, and they are of many types. Useless talk. Now, useless talks will come with respect to reading newspapers, magazines, novels. So then we'll start talking about it also. So that's why we should avoid it. Then there are arguments. We argue and we debate on some, even in spiritual circles, when we start to debate to show how, I know things better. And that is a great anartha. Gossiping about other devotees. This devotee, what he did? This is his fault. Finding fault with devotees, fault finding. Speaking falsehood and blaspheming devotees. These finding fault and blaspheming devotees comes in Vaishnav Ninda, which is a great aparadh, which can destroy our devotion. So that we should, and worldly talks. Especially worldly talks, because we are in the outside world, especially those who are working, and there is a lot of worldly talk going on, and that can affect us. And when we come in the association of devotees or come back home, we carry that impressions, and we might get into worldly talks. So all these categories fall in prajalpa, and we should be careful not to do this prajalpa. During Prabhupada's time, we know that there was no internet and there was no television. Television was just started, I think, during that time. And Prabhupada practically in his entire preaching life, that is, I'm speaking from 1970s to 1980, from 1966 to 1977, 11 years. That is from from the age of 70 to 81, practically used the telephone only 5-6 times. Just 5-6 times he used the telephone. And one of the calls was from Giriraj Maharaj that, they were able to get the land for his Jew. Prabhupada was very happy. And telex, telex is messaging. And Prabhupada was in one of the centers and he was giving a talk there, and all the devotees were hearing, and there was some program and functions going on, some festival. And one of the devotees was sending a telex message to the other centers. And Prabhupada asked, what is this? Prabhupada, this is a telex. You can type the message here. What is this? Fax machine. It's like a fax machine. You type the message here to the telex and it will reach. I am sending this message to the other centers in the other part of the country. And Prabhupada, when he heard this, Prabhupada said, this is prajalpa. That time, telex, he considered it as prajalpa. And today we have WhatsApp, we have email messages, internet, so many ways of sending messages. From one part of the world to the another part, within a second, we can transmit message. In telex, it takes time. You have to type here and somebody has to print the message on the other side. And then he gets the message. You have to wait. You need tremendous patience for that. So Prabhupada, that time he spoke that this is prajalpa. So how much careful we should be now. We might use these technologies today for preaching purpose, but they have the other side of it, and we should have a lot of protection systems in order to see that we don't get affected by them. we should have certain rules to use them. Otherwise, we will be ruled by these devices. So that is about Prajalpa in brief. Yes, Mataji, Nitya Sevini Mataji, you have a question?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. You said watching TV is considered as a prajalpa.
I did not say, Prabhupada is saying.
Oh, it is sorry, Prabhu. Watching TV is considered as a prajalpa. Prabhuji, nowadays most of the people are watching TV. Not they are addicted to some serials and some programs and other things. But sometimes if you watch some good programs, is it considered as a prajalpa?
About devotees you are speaking or non-devotees?
Devotees.
Devotees. Now, TV is, one of the, what to say about it. Usually in the families today, they get the TV and the purpose they say is very clear. Oh, we want to, use it for our children to show Krishna conscious cartoons or Krishna conscious this. And that is the purpose we are getting the TV, and sometimes to watch, some, some serials, which are again directly related to Krishna conscious. But again, with this, slowly there is, the mind will say, oh, let us watch the Natural Geographic channel. There is something good about it, it's more sattvic in nature. So let us also, go there. And then suddenly what happens is, usually with TV or any devices, they are powerful, powerhouses of the mode of passion. The tendency to change the channels is very fast. So we change channels to the news and we keep on changing channels like that. So the mode of passion, it aggravates the mode of passion. This is one thing which we can observe, which is not healthy for our spiritual practice. And one of the sannyasis, proper disciple, was telling me, if you have the TV, you will break all the 4 regulative principles, he said. Illicit sex, because you see what is happening on the TV. If you see, there is only, all movies about hero and heroine. Then there is meat eating, there is gambling, intoxication. So all 4 regulative principles, we break. So that is why we have to be very, very careful about it. Extremely careful. I know one devotee, he's a very elderly person. He's around in his 75, 80s. And he has a big screen TV with a speaker. But morning, he ons the TV to hear the Bhagavatam class. Afternoon, he ons the TV to hear some katha which is going on there. And exclusively he uses it for that and nothing else. Because for him, at this age, it is only Shravanam and his chanting. So I could appreciate that, yes, he is using it for the right purpose. And he has no taste also, because he's coming from a very cultured background. But in today's context, it has these problems. And definitely, if we don't have certain rules, certain guidelines, then, generally the tendency is to glide down. The mode of goodness to maintain is very, very difficult in this today's age. And goodness usually slowly creeps down to passion and ignorance. So that is why we'll have to see how we are going to, go about it. It's one's individual discrimination. And I've just given you some hints. That's it. Surya Kunda Prabhuji has a question. First time I'm hearing from Surya. I would like to ask other devotees who don't ask questions. I'll have to ask them only questions, I think. Yes, Surya Kunda Prabhuji. I have unmuted you.
Yes. What are now? There are cartoons like Little Krishna and that. No, that we can show to our children or what? Because there are a lot of cartoons about Krishna and other demigods like. Bhim, little Bhim, this and that. But little Krishna, what they it is there. It is a lengthy cartoon at 4 hours something. So can children watch that?
What to do? Speak about children. Even adults like to watch Little Krishna.
Because if they see the serials like Little Krishna, Krishna and Radha and Krishna, that serial is coming up. So they don't understand. Children don't understand that.
Now, I don't know what is the principle. I'm not going to speak about principle here, but I will speak about my preference. Now, it is up to you to judge. My observation is when this Little Krishna came out, it is my observation that by watching Little Krishna, your devotion to Krishna will not increase. First thing, this is my observation.
Okay.
Secondly, how Krishna is Bhagwan, absolute truth, that Siddhanta will not come up from this watching of Little Krishna. This is my observation again. But the same children, if the parents sit and spend time in telling Krishna stories from the same Krishna book, they will make much better relationship. Firstly. Secondly, visualization. Visualization is a very powerful capability which Krishna has given us to visualize things. We can, in our memory, there are two aspects. One is in the form of names, in the form of visualizations. I can remember some person because that visual image is there in my memory, but I might not remember his name. So when we read stories and visualize, our inner capacity to visualize and put them into pictures in our mind increases to higher capacities. Whereas when we watch on TVs, the visualization capacity of an individual reduces. What to speak, many years back, I was in one house and the kid was watching a cartoon. And I called him and asked him suddenly, abruptly, what is 53 plus 48? And he did not, have that ability, mental ability to add and give the answer because of too much absorption in TV. Because when we sit in front of the TV, the image is continuously changing. So our mind and intelligence are getting agitated because of it. Whereas if you want to read, we can't read, can't you read when things are moving? The pages are moving, can you read? No, we cannot read. So the images are continuously moving. So it affects our visual capacity, it affects our mind. The mind becomes more agitated. So these are the effects. We have to understand the reality of the situation. As a license, I know one royal family here who are coming from a very good family. They are industrialists. And the parents told me that they don't allow their children to watch. They only allow for 30 minutes a day to watch. And they have appointed a tutor to train all their children to, tell moral stories, Krishna stories. And in fact, all these children, when they came to visit in the temple, they all told me those stories. So their, ability to recite, repeat the stories in their memory happens when they physically read. Whereas nobody, becomes devoted by seeing the Little Krishna, serial. At least in my observation, many might vary. This is my personal preference, and there might be contradictions regarding it. But this is my personal preference, and that's why I'm speaking about it.
Because my daughter sees this Little Krishna, and in her mind that only one impression is that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and she tries to draw Krishna and Radha. So in her mind is there only Lord Krishna is a supreme person, like by seeing this serial.
So I told you it is my preference, and somebody who is getting inspired, yes, then you can allow for a certain time.
Okay.
But better to give them these moral stories and stories from the book directly, which is more helpful for increasing their visualization. So I'll take one last question. Sarthi Parth Vasudev Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Haribol Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji.
Yes, tell me.
Now we are talking about the Prajalpa and other, already we have discussed. When we friends or somebody in the groups which we are chatting about the current scenario of politics and other things, is a Prajalpa only?
Yes, it is a Prajalpa. It is a
Exchange
Prajalpa.
of knowledge also it comes under Prajalpa?
But what we do by that, like today's social situation, there is something wrong which is happening in the government level or at the industrial level. We speak about it, we chat about it.
We can't do
There is
anything.
exchange of knowledge. But are you a qualified person who has been appointed by the government to actually find out what is the present scenario and give inputs to the government so that they can rectify the problem there? No, you're not given that. But your talking will definitely lead into Prajalpa because your solutions will be not taken care by the center there, which is the root. So in that sense, they are Prajalpa. Is it clear? Yes. There is one question by whom this is. Who is this? So, Prabhu, if children are exposed to imagine by themselves, when we tell them stories, sometimes they might come to some conclusions which are not favor. They might think something else, or they have lack of knowledge. So, how do you? Again, the question is not so clear here. It's better that they ask the question, I was just speaking not about imagination, but visualization, the capacity to visualize things. Today, because we use calculators, we don't use our hands for multiplication. Till now, I also don't use calculators much for multiplication because the mental abilities diminish if we use calculators, not to speak about television and so many other devices. One's mental abilities to do calculations in the mind, one's mental strength also improves. In fact, this is, we become, in fact, handicapped by using calculators. Now, what to speak about visual capacities? I am speaking about visual capacities. These help in our creative abilities, in fact, by doing, by taking up to natural processes. That's my point, actually. Yeah, there is one question. This Priya Prabhakar. Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. This is the last question we are taking. Is there any other question? Okay. So fine, we will stop here, and in the next class, we will finish text 2, and then we will start with text 3. Srila Updesh Amrit ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai. Hare Krishna.